What's going on, Broncos Country? Welcome into a live show. Today, we are going to break down some training camp winners and losers. Now that we have a week and a half of padded practices essentially in the books, plus we're going to recap all of the latest news and rumors on your team. So we're going to dive into what we are hearing out of training camp. We've got some injury news, unfortunately, to talk about on today's show. So a lot to discuss, but first things first, while we let the audience build up for a moment, shout out your city. We're going to jump into all that good stuff, minus the injury news part, of course, in just a few seconds. But before we do, I just want to hear from everyone watching right now. Shout out your city in the comment section. This is my favorite segment of the build-up portion, as we call it, because it's so fun to see how far and wide Broncos Country stretches. It is not just stuck to Colorado or some of its neighboring states. No. By looking in the chat, I'm going to see we'll go from the Pacific to the Atlantic. We've got Washington, D.C., Salt Lake City, Greeley, James, hopefully it's smelling okay today, Italiano, Stallone, Denver, Colorado, Michael Montoya tuning in from Pueblo, Colorado. We've got South Central L.A., Bristol, all the way across the pond in England. What's going on, Stank, by the way? Northern Ontario, so we have a good chunk of the British Empire, at least some of the old British Empire, a colony or two, Canada, and England itself. Cleveland, Ohio, tuning in from Corey. We've got Cat Native Child, Missouri, tuning in. Jacksonville, Bakersfield, California. Keep getting those cities, towns, and countries in the comment section. Let me know where you are tuning in from. And while you are typing that in the chat, let me throw another question your way. Should the starters play in the preseason? I would be a hypocrite if I stood here today and said, of course they should play. I've always advocated for starters playing in the preseason because last year I was naive. I wanted to buy into the Nathaniel Hackett-led team. So if Hackett said we're not playing starters in the preseason, well, like a sheep, I followed along and said, yeah, why do you want to play starters in the preseason? You don't want to see any injuries. Well, unfortunately, you didn't see any injuries, but you saw a horrible play in the regular season. So Sean Payton is sticking to his word of whatever they did last year, we're doing the complete opposite. Now, they're not going to play the starters for the entire preseason. He said 15 to 18 snaps for most of the starters, so that includes Russell Wilson as well. But what are your thoughts on this? Should the starters play in the preseason? P for play, S for sit. I think for a first-year head coach, and that applies to Sean Payton and Nathaniel Hackett, they're taking over a team that does not have a lot of tradition of success in winning. I don't think they should be given any freebies or anything like that. You want to build a culture where players have to work hard and play hard? Well, playing in the preseason and not letting them hang out in the sidelines like a bunch of seniors at a freshman game is probably a good start to that at least. So I'm seeing some plays come in for sure. Garrett says sit. There's something to you don't want to see an injury. And unfortunately, I'm going to probably I'll say it. Someone's going to get hurt in the preseason. Like, that's just how preseason football works. And when that someone gets hurt, there's going to be a subset of fans who are very loud and very upset and say that guy should not have been playing anyway. And that's not necessarily wrong, but if you want to repeat last year, do what you did last year, which is not play anyone in the preseason and have this team look wildly unprepared in the regular season like they were. Situational football, fourth quarter, at Seattle. What do you want to do? Hackett, don't run the clock all the way down and then call a timeout and then trot out McManus for an 82-yard field goal. Probably not a good idea. May have been avoided if he had some more situational football being played in the preseason. So I'm seeing Derek Tidwell said, yes, play. We don't want to be blindsided like last year. No doubt about it. Shane is asking, do you think Russell will have more touchdowns this year? He had 16 touchdowns a year ago, 4 more than the number of bathrooms in his house. I sure hope he can build off his 16 touchdowns. That tied or was a career low in a single season for Russ. I don't think he'll be as bad as he was last season. Will he look like the 40-touchdown quarterback in 2020? I don't think so either. But I think he's going to be somewhere in the middle. And that's better than last year, but that's definitely not as good as what you thought you were getting when you moved on from 2 firsts and 2 seconds and some players for him. But with that being said, We're going to talk about some injury news in just a moment, but I want to show one guy some love, Justin Simmons. Justin Simmons, in my eyes, is one of the most underappreciated, under-talked about, underrated defensive player in our game. The guy has no All-Pro honors, yet last year he led the NFL in interceptions, despite spending 4 games on IR. That's incredibly difficult to do, to lead any NFL category and miss 4 games. Whether it's touchdowns, interceptions, tackles, if you want to lead a category, you have to play the whole season. So for Simmons to finish tied for first with 6 picks and only play in 13 games, that's truly incredible. All right, we got a super chat coming in. Let's go. Definitely going to heart that super chat. New function on YouTube. We will throw that super chat on screen in just a moment while our software loads it. But objectively biased, we need a new strength coach. Too many injuries. Denver has changed a lot of things in the last decade or so. Whether it's strength and conditioning coach, which I'm going to show a moment of weakness here. I don't have the entire coaching staff memorized, but I do believe that Sean Payton brought his own strength and conditioning coach over. So I'm tempted to believe that they have made a lot of changes. Here's that super chat, though, objectively biased. Hey, if you want to get on screen, super chat, we'll throw it on for everyone to see. But I'm not against just burning the whole thing down in terms of starting over, new practice facility and everything. The ownership group, Greg Penner, talked about that, about how the main practice facility, the building itself, is not big enough, and they might look to build a new one. They like the property where it's at. They own the property, and it's not easy to come across big property in a metroplex like Denver. So what they have right now is probably where they're going to be for the future. But they practice on some Indian burial ground. I don't know who they pissed off. I don't know whose wife they slept with, but clearly Denver has an injury issue, and it needs to be solved. I don't know what the solution is. I wish I could title the video for today, How the Broncos Can Fix Their Injury Issue, but I'm not a doctor, I'm not a kinesiologist, but they definitely have to make some changes. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of today's show, we will have a mailbag at the end of the show. So if you want to get on screen for everyone to see, you can super chat like we just had a moment ago, and we'll toss it on. Or you can go the hashtag Broncos route in the chat section. If you go that route, well, you're at the mercy of producer Tyler Smith to pick his favorite question. So super chat, throw it on screen, or you can go hashtag Broncos in the live chat function, and our software will pull those questions out, put it on the computer. Smitty will pick his favorite questions, and voila, it'll go on screen. Now, with that being said, let's get into what we've got on tap today, the latest news and rumors surrounding the Broncos, plus I've got some training camp winners and losers as we are 11 days into training camp. So who has stuck out to me in a good way or a bad way? And then like we just said, that live mailbag, hashtag Broncos or super chat, guarantee your spot on screen. So with that being said, we've got almost 100 people watching right now, but just 20 likes. What am I doing wrong here? Let me know. If you like the content we're doing, like the video. It definitely goes a long way. So we're at 20 likes. We're not going to get the show started until we get to 30 likes. So once you like the video, type me in the chat and I'll give you a shout out. We're at 24 likes, 6 likes away from jumping into all of the latest news and rumors. I'm waiting for some more me's to fly in as we are 4 away. Derek Simmons, Derek Tidwell. Shout out to the Derricks. Love to see it. Dion Sharp is in the house. Dion, you are a legend in the comment section. Thank you so much for always supporting us here. We've got Brandon. We've got Michael, Shane. We're at 35 likes. Italiano. Let's rock and roll. Producer Smitty, do we have the green light? We got a thumbs up. All right. It is a go for launch. Let's jump into a live Broncos breakdown. Coming up on today's show, unfortunately, we have some more injury news to get to coming out of training camp. Justin Simmons has missed some time. Mike McGlinchey was helped off the field. So we'll get you guys up to speed on all the latest on the injury front. And then I want to take a break from talking injury news because it just bums everyone out. And I want to talk about something positive, which is ESPN picking a Broncos player as a breakout candidate for 2023. But let's get started, unfortunately, with the big news item, and that is Justin Simmons, as he has missed the last few practices with a groin injury, according to Sean Payton. Now, Simmons got off to a white-hot start in training camp. He picked off Russell Wilson. He was batting down passes. He looked like a player who had a career-high 6 interceptions a season ago. Simmons looked every bit of an all-pro safety, and I'm here to start the campaign of Justin Simmons should get some more appreciation. But unfortunately, a groin injury has kept him on the sideline. And you know what? Sean, I'll say it. Shut it down. John Taffer style, shut it down. Shut Simmons down until September 10th against the Raiders. I don't need to see anything more from Justin Simmons. He came into camp in shape. He looked good in the first week or so. What more do I need to see from Justin Simmons? He has never been the issue. He has never been the problem. Justin Simmons has always been the most consistent player on this defense for the last 5, 6, or 7 years. I have seen everything that I need to see out of Simmons. I do not want to mess around with a groin injury, which, if you recall, and if I'm correct, it's what led him to have a brief stint on the IR last year when he missed 4 games. So for that reason, yeah, I don't need to see any more of Justin Simmons. I have seen enough. I think we get the picture loud and clear. Other guys I don't need to see, it's a short list. Pat Surtain, he's an all-pro player. I think I've seen enough, meaning he does not need to play in the preseason. These guys, once they're healthy, or Simmons at least, sure, they can play some practice snaps or whatever, no doubt about it. They're not above the team where they get to stand on the sideline until September 10th, but they don't need to go out in harm's way. I don't need to see either of these players play in the preseason. I get what Sean Payton is trying to do of we're doing a 180 of last year, but don't overdo it, Sean. Do not put Simmons or Surtain in harm's way. Shut it down. And also, I just want to remind you guys that Simmons is fucking awesome. Last year, he had 6 interceptions, and he only played in 12 games. The season prior, 5 interceptions in 17 games. I mean, look at the interceptions numbers. 6, 5, 5, 4. He has been one of the most underappreciated defensive backs in the National Football League. But with him out on the safety room, it's going to give an opportunity for some other guys to step up a little bit more. Kareem Jackson is an NFL vet, which means he gets some rest days every so often. We also don't need to see a whole lot of Kareem Jackson. We know who he is as a player. It's not his first Broncos training camp. So this means Caden Stearns, the third-year guy now out of Texas, Delaren Turner-Yell, out of Oklahoma, another player we're going to see some more of. J.L. Skinner, rookie from Boise State. But Caden Stearns is someone that I've always had a bit of a man crush on. Last year, he filled in so nicely for Justin Simmons. Remember that Week 2 game against the Houston Texans? Week 2 or Week 3? He was awesome. He was making plays. He was picking off passes. I'm very excited to see how Caden Stearns runs with this opportunity because I always wanted the safety room to be Caden Stearns and Justin Simmons. They keep bringing back K-Jack. I've got nothing against K-Jack, but he keeps getting in the way of my man Caden Stearns. But I'm excited to see how he runs with this opportunity. Hopefully, he stays healthy. But I want to show Justin Simmons some love right now. I want Broncos Country to show up right now and show out and spam 31 in the comment section. I know it might feel a bit juvenile, but just hear me out for a moment. Justin Simmons, these guys name search more than you think. He wants to know what the fan base is saying about him. And he wants to know that he's got a long-term home here in Denver. And that way, you might see a couple 131s in the comments and go, you know, the next time I'm a free agent, maybe I take less money. Maybe I stay here in Denver because I want to play in front of these fans for the rest of my NFL career. Other injury news to get to now. Mike McGlinchey, the big-name free agent acquisition from the San Francisco 49ers. Well, he left practice today, at least briefly, with an injury. Zach Stevens tweeted this out. After limping off the field, trainers worked with Mike McGlinchey on the side, and it appears he's back with the team. So a bit of a scare, no doubt about it. I would not be shocked if this injury leads to Mike McGlinchey sitting out the first preseason game. Didn't get any sort of post-practice update on his status, but definitely something that raised some eyebrows and probably some heart rates along with it. Eric Delilah also added to this by tweeting out, right tackle Mike McGlinchey was shaken up during 9-on-7 work. He's walking under his own power to the locker room. So it's practice. It's August. You don't need to push anything. He probably just wants to go inside, get a better look from the trainers. Wasn't carted off. Didn't look like anything too serious, but there's just no sense in playing with any of this stuff right now. We can get a better depth chart actually up in just a moment here. But left tackle Garrett Bowles comes back. Ben Powers at left guard. Lloyd Cushenberry at center. There's Mike McGlinchey joining the right side of the offensive line. Everyone clap it up for producer Smitty. New guy is doing one heck of a job. Quinn Meinerz steps in at right guard, of course. So with McGlinchey maybe down for, I don't want to say long, but if he does miss, not regular season time from this, but what it could look like for the preseason, Cam Fleming was signed as this team's swing tackle. So Fleming would probably be that first guy to step in and take over for whether it's Bowles or McGlinchey at tackle. Unfortunately, the bad injury news train continues. Brandon Johnson, a wide receiver who was a UDFA last year coming out of UCF. I was very high on him coming out last season when Denver got him after the draft. He was great in training camp. He had a bad ankle sprain, unfortunately, in a preseason game, and as a result, he was released by the Broncos, later brought back on, even scored a touchdown in the regular season for them. But he went down in practice. He was shaken up. He was on all fours at one point. He had to get helped off the field. It was a scary moment, no doubt about it, especially for Brandon Johnson at a position where Denver is already becoming razor thin at wide receiver following Tim Patrick's injury. But here's what Broncos reporter Trey Rank had to say. Talked to a source about wide receiver Brandon Johnson, who left practice with a leg issue. Early word is that he should be fine. He has capitalized on his opportunity, has had terrific camp, so love to see him back out there soon. And like I said, his opportunity is filling in for Tim Patrick, because when you look at this wide receiver room, yes, Marvin Mims will move up a spot, but Marvin Mims is not going to replace Tim Patrick, right? Marvin Mims is there to stretch the field. Marvin Mims is there for the big plays. Tim Patrick is there to work over the middle of the field, to help move the chains, and most importantly, be a red zone target. That's not Marvin Mims, but that could be Brandon Johnson, which is why he might not be a household name. But last year, Denver on offense struggled all over the field, but they were bad in the red zone because they never really had a true red zone target, and that's where they sorely missed Tim Patrick. This year, they're going to miss him again. Hopefully, Brandon Johnson can fill that void, but we need him to be healthy, of course. Injuries always happen, and I don't suspect that these are being from overworked and too long of practices, but I do wonder if Sean Payton was maybe a bit too aggressive in his 180 approach from last year, and we're starting to see a lot of players go down because Sean Payton goes, last season I heard you guys were playing Kahoot and having field days and water balloon fights. Yeah, that's not happening anymore. We're going to play football every single day. We're going to put the pads on and play as long as the CBA allows it. And I get the message that Payton is trying to send, which is whatever we did last year or whatever you guys did last year was a complete and utter failure. So we're doing the opposite this year. But maybe don't overcorrect so far where when the regular season rolls around, you're like the Tom Thibodeau of the NFL and all of your players are burnt out. You don't want to see that happen either. All right, before we get on to the rest of today's show, we're doing a sub battle with our Raiders Report foes here at Chat Sports for the month of August. They've got a 9-sub lead on us. Plenty of time to take them back, though. I'm not concerned at all. And I look forward to Denver beating Las Vegas in Week 1. If you're ready to crush the Raiders Week 1, hit the subscribe button. Let's get the good vibes going as Denver kind of ends a bad drought against the Raiders. Now, let's talk about a breakout candidate. Quinn Meinerz was included in an ESPN article and labeled as a player who could go from starter to Pro Bowl. Now, Meinerz last year had 13 starts. He got injured, unfortunately, early in the year and had to go on IR, I believe, after the Seahawks game. But he had starts at left guard and right guard. But with Ben Powers coming over, he is the full-time right guard on this offensive line. The former third-round pick out of Wisconsin Whitewater no longer wants to be known as Belly, which is a bummer because that's a top 5 offensive lineman nickname. but I definitely can get behind Meinerz having a breakout season in 2023. I mean, I would say, it's not even breakout, right? It's what Barnwell said it is, which is going from starter to Pro Bowl. And he played at a Pro Bowl level last year, in my opinion. He was the 6th best guard in PFF's eyes. Overall grade of 77.7. So I only have reason to believe that he's going to get better going into season number 3. Hopefully he's healthy. And like ESPN picked, he's going to go from just some above average NFL starting guard to a Pro Bowl caliber player. And he's going to be a big part of this turnaround in the offensive line. Only 2 years in, but hear me out for a moment. I'm getting major, he should be a Bronco for life vibes, right? He loves this team. He's embraced the city already. I would love to see Quinn Meinerz get a 2nd and get a 3rd and maybe in a 4th contract with the Broncos, because I'm getting a Justin Simmons on the offensive side of the football type of feel where he wants to be here. Team wants him here. He's a great football player. I love Belly. I love Meinerz. I want to see him ride out his entire career with Broncos Country. In case you're wondering, here were the other ESPN selections for starters to Pro Bowlers. Garrett Wilson, I can see that for sure. Charles Cross, that one stings. That means Denver could have had Meinerz and Charles Cross. Jalen Phillips for sure. Jaquan Brisker and Jalen Petrie, a pair of safeties entering their 2nd season. Now, off-the-wall question here. Name a random Broncos offensive lineman. The more random, the better. You cannot be surface level. No big-time names, no Garrett Bowles or anything like that. I'm talking deep cuts for offensive linemen. Let's see how random we can get down in the comment section. So, with that being said, we have our hot takes for the summer. It is a high of 83 degrees today in the Mile High City. So we have a nice warm plate take to continue our way until the regular season. And my warm plate take today is Hard Knocks is still great. Hard Knocks comes back tonight. It's with the New York Jets. And there is always that group of people that think it's so cool now to say, Hard Knocks sucks. I can't even remember the last time I watched it. You're lost. I love Hard Knocks. I enjoy watching Hard Knocks probably more than preseason football. And I know that's going to raise some eyebrows. But after the first preseason game, we will all be on the same page, which is, can we fast forward to the regular season now? Hard Knocks, I look forward to every single episode. So I don't know if this really has to be said, if it's all that hot takey, but there has recently been some pushback on Hard Knocks. I don't get it. I still love Hard Knocks. If you're a Hard Knocks guy, knock if you're with me. Name a random Broncos O lineman. Orlando Franklin, we can get more random than that. Come on. Luke Wattenberg, Kyle Fuller, love to see it. Mark, yeah, that's a good knock. That's a good one. Bobby saying Hard Knocks was really good last year. It was great. It was very good last year in Detroit. Before that, it was with the Cowboys. That one did kind of stink in terms of how it compared to the Raiders one, the Browns one, the Lions one, but I still watched it. It's just that Dak Prescott's super duper boring, so they made him the main character, and that was probably a bad idea. Garcia, that's a good one. Like to see it. Bishop, Mark Sheriff, yep. Keep getting those random offensive linemen in the chat right now. We're going to get into another segment in just a second here. Some winners and losers coming out of the first week and a half of training camp. So stay tuned for that. We'll get everything situated on our end first. Over 127 people watching right now, but just 45 likes. Can we get up to 50 likes, please? 50 likes would definitely be a nice milestone to reach on today's show. So if you are enjoying the free content, like the video. Definitely goes a long way. Believe me, you have no idea. Bill Bryan, Paul Howard. We are getting some good random offensive linemen in the chat right now. Keep peppering them down below. I'll be giving shout-outs. Moses, does Matt go to games? Unfortunately, I'm unable to go to games. Not banned from games, but Chat Sports is located in Dallas, Texas, and so we do all of our content and filming here, so it's just not feasible to go to games and then do a watch party or film a post-game show if I'm at the game, right? So I wish I could go to more games, but that's just the nature of the beast. Okay, Ryan Harris, the last random offensive lineman, we'll give a shout-out to. Next up are some winners and losers from training camp. So, in case you're wondering who has fared well and who has not fared all that well, you're in the right spot. We're going to break it all down for you on today's show. You might be interested to see where I have Russell Wilson, of course. I'm going to leave that one as a bit of a surprise, but you might love me. You might hate me for it. Well, we're going to go through with it. Okay. Are we ready to jump into some winners and losers? Okay. We've got the thumbs up from the production team. The new guy, Tyler Smith. He's doing his first live show. So everyone type in Smitty in the chat right now. He's doing a great job. Let's show the guy some love. He's jumping into the fire. It's like his third, fourth week here at Chat Sports, and he's already doing one of the more tougher challenges we have. So with that being said, ready to roll? Okay, here we go. Let's talk winners and losers. We are 2 weeks into Broncos training camp, and so that means we have some winners and losers to go over. Who has been the biggest winner so far? Who has been some of the losers? We're going to break that all down on today's show. Now, before we check out our first winner, very quick self-plug here. Make sure to go ahead and subscribe. Free daily content, live interactive shows every Tuesday, 3 o'clock Mountain Time. And I like to think the best Broncos YouTube channel out there. So consider subscribing if you have not already. Now, my first winner from training camp is Javonte Williams. I can't get enough of this story. I mean, I think back to the offseason and from February to May, talking about Javonte Williams and telling everyone to lower your expectations for 2023. It's going to be a rough recovery. I don't think he'll play in the start of the season. And I could not have been more wrong. And I'm not alone, but shout out to Javonte Williams because I like to think just a little bit. He watched some Broncos breakdown videos, and he's like, you know what? Let's prove those guys wrong. Let's not even go on the pup list one day for training camp. He's had reportedly a very strong start to camp, had some nice plays with Russell Wilson the other day, came back to the football, made a nice grab, worked his way down the sideline. Javonte has been great. It's been awesome to hear and see more and more good news come out from 33 because this is, I know, a bit of an exaggeration, but not really at the same time, a medical miracle. Like, you don't tear that many knee ligaments in October and be ready to roll by July the next year. Now, his own running back teammate, Tony Jones Jr., he sees this in Javonte. Here's what he said on Williams. He's rolling, man. I've never seen anyone roll like that fresh off a knee injury. That's dope, man. I love it for him. He's going to be ready, and I can't wait to see it. And, of course, his right guard, Quinn Meinerz, said, it's incredible. I'm really happy for him to see him to be back out here making great cuts. You know that when it gets time to play games, he's going to be knocking defenders back, and we're going to be pushing that pile. I'll never stop being amazed at the fact that Javonte Williams bounced back this quickly from a major knee injury, but we still get to play a regular season game. So I stand here today to say to myself and to you guys watching, let's not put the cart in front of the horse, right? Let's make sure that we get the regular season off and running before we truly crown Javonte Williams as an incredible comeback king, because it's been incredible so far, but the job's not done. The job in some ways has not even started. Definitely does not take away from the fact that he is available for the start of camp and not limited, but I don't want to just act like it's all over and we are ready to roll and Williams is 100%. We still have some time to go until the regular season. And if Javonte Williams bounces back like the way he started last year, minus that one goal line play in Seattle, there's reason to believe he's going to have a very good season. He averaged over 4 yards a carry before he went down. Never quite found the end zone in 2022, but I think he's going to do a lot of good things in this offense. But I'm also going to stand here and say it might not be as big of like a fantasy impact, if you know what I mean. Because Sean Payton, he doesn't love to run his running backs into the ground. Look at the RB1 under Sean Payton his last 5 years in New Orleans. He had Alvin Kamara lead this team in carries for those last 5 years. The highest Alvin Kamara ever finished in terms of NFL rank for rushing attempts was 6. And before that, tied for 15th in 2020, 25th in 2019, 16th in 2018. And Mark Ingram in 2017, he finished 13th. So Sean Payton likes to have a balanced backfield. So now we insert Samaje Perine. It's great to see Javonte Williams back out there, but I do want to remind you guys, it's not going to be 25 to 30 carries for Javonte Williams. Whether or not he was healthy, that was never going to be the plan, in my opinion. You're going to see a good dosage of Samaje Perine because this is just a Sean Payton backfield. He likes a more of a committee approach. He does not want to have a running back get 330 plus carries. That's just not in his recipe book. He wants to balance it out a little bit and try and stretch running backs out for an extra season or two. And so you're going to see a good balance between Perine, Williams, and then whoever emerges as that RB3, whether it's Tony Jones, Jaleel McLaughlin, someone else. But just lower your sights, lower your hopes a little bit for Javonte Williams, 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns. I don't know if he's going to get enough of a workload to get those types of numbers. My first loser from training camp, I'm going to go with the offensive line. It's only been a week and a half, so I'm not going to panic or anything like that, but I got to call it how I see it. And that is the offensive line has unfortunately struggled. Mike McGlinchey had to miss the first week of camp or so due to a personal issue. Very unfortunate to see. But the offensive line, which has had a lot of investments made into it this offseason, has not been spectacular. If you had to pick a winner between the offensive line and the defensive line through the first week and a half at camp, well, you could ask anyone that's been to one day of practice, and they would tell you it's been the defensive line. They have gotten their fair share of wins in so far over the offensive line. I'm not going to panic. Give it some time. Things will start clicking. It takes time for an install to really get down to the trenches, to understand what they're being asked to do. Offensive line in the NFL is more than just, three-point stance, block that guy. There are a lot of moving pieces. You have guards pulling. You have tackles getting to the second level and whatnot. You've got chips being made. There are a lot of nuances to it. Sean Payton is installing his new offense. There are going to be some growing pains. And as long as I see those growing pains in the preseason and the training camp, that's fine with me. That's what this is for. It's when it goes into the regular season, we have a bit of an issue. But so far, the offensive line has not been tremendously good. You guys can make fun of me for this, but I went right down the middle for Russell Wilson. I'm going to call it a draw. I don't think he's a winner, and I don't think he's a loser. So you can look at that half glass full or half glass empty. I don't think he's done enough for either side to be clearly labeled as one of those two. So I'm going to have it as a tie, a draw for Russell Wilson, because he got off to a bit of a sluggish start at training camp. There's no doubt about it. And we saw that last year, but no one really wanted to talk about it because everyone was excited about what this team could look like under Russ. But Wilson has strung together some really good practices. We're filming this live during our show on Tuesday, and Wilson during practice today had a great red zone drill, had some nice touchdowns involved. He looked much sharper than he did through the first few days of camp. He has put together some good back-to-back-to-back days, and that's what you want to see because anyone can have one good day. But it's when you start stacking those good days, you get into a rhythm, you start feeling yourself, and then the regular season rolls around, and you carry that into the regular season. But Russell Wilson will play in the preseason, so we will get a better idea as to how much he has come along compared to how he looked last year. Now, his new teammate, Zach Allen, has had some really good things to say about him. He said, yeah, he's still fast. There's definitely a couple of times where after practice we'll be, I think I got you. He'll say, no, you didn't. And then we have to watch the film, and sometimes I did get him, sometimes I didn't get him. So, no, he's still a great athlete and just very fortunate to have him. He's looked great. I know this is great things to hear, and it's very, rejuvenating, but this is just rah-rah teammate talk to me. Like, of course, he's going to go out there and say, we're fortunate to have him. He's been great. All 32 teams do this. Not all 32 teams have great seasons. Go look at the winless Browns or winless Lions preseason. They all had positive things to say. Doesn't always work out that way. So, yes, it's very nice to hear, encouraging and confident words being said about Russell Wilson. But I'm not going to look at that quote and go, Russ is back. Zach Allen said it. Book it. It's a fact. No, Zach Allen is just pumping up his new team. Now, I also want to add this, that Russ at the first week of training camp was meh. Had some good plays, had some bad plays. Russ was also dealing with the first week of training camp, which is the install. Sean Payton, brand new offense, new offensive coordinator. Lombardi comes in. They are implementing all their nuances. They are putting in their playbook. They are putting in their jargon, their lingo, all their audibles. It is a very complex thing. The install is not just going to Home Depot and getting some new flooring. The install is a big project, and it takes some time to get the swing of things. So if Russ is bad in the first week because he is still picking up the install, I'm not going to panic over that. All eyes are on Russell Wilson. Every single pass he throws at training camp is going to be scrutinized. Every single pass in the preseason is going to be judged. But I'm going to tune in more for the preseason and the joint practices, specifically the joint practices. Their third preseason game against the Rams, they have joint practices in LA, and I want to see how Russ fares in that more than the preseason, honestly, because in the preseason, he's going to go up against teams' backup defenses. In joint practices, it's starters versus starters. You can learn a lot more about a team in joint practices than preseasons, in my opinion. Now, random question. Not quite random, but hear me out. 18 touchdowns for Russell Wilson. Over or under? I picked 18 because it is the most amount of touchdowns a Broncos quarterback has thrown for since Peyton Manning retired. Teddy Bridgewater did it 2 seasons ago. So can Russell Wilson put up the best quarterback season since Peyton Manning did so back in, well, not quite Manning in 2015, but you get the gist. Over or under 18 touchdowns for Russ this upcoming season. Now, before we check out the rest of our winners and losers, be a winner by getting started with our sportsbook partner, BetUS. Chatsports.com/bet. When you enter that link in, enter the promo code Broncos125. You get hooked up with a 125% deposit bonus. Now, in English, if you put $100 in, they match that $100 and then give you an additional $25. So you got $225 to play with. Ride with me. I'm all over the overs for the preseason. Preseason is tough to watch. I am the mayor, the Grinch of football is not back until the regular season. So if you don't want to stab your eyes out for the fourth quarter of a preseason football game, bet the over. It makes it so much more enjoyable. Trust me. My second winner now, Zach Allen. This is a name that you might not be familiar with. Big free agent signing this offseason. The new guy in town. Get familiar with his name because he has been making a lot of noise in training camp. Reportedly, he has been the star of the defense. He has been a menace at training camp. He has caused the offense to stop and restart and refocus. He has consistently been disrupting plays, wreaking havoc on the offensive line. Denver loved him coming out of Arizona. They inked him to a 3-year, $45+ million contract to reunite him with Vance Joseph. So there is a lot of hype and potential and belief in Zach Allen based on what they're paying him. And he has lived up to that so far through the first 2 weeks of training camp. His new head coach, Sean Payton, had this to say on Allen. We had a player. I'm not comparing this player. They play different positions. We had a player in New Orleans, Trey Hendrickson, that was just a handful with each snap. Energy and effort. And Zach's that way. Down, in, and down, out. And really, really consistent. It takes a lot of energy, especially when you're playing inside, to play that way. And so he's got really good stamina. I've been really pleased with him. Zach Allen was a signing that I was not doing cartwheels over. I thought $45+ million for a guy who had 5.5 sacks as a career high a year ago was maybe a bit too rich, in my opinion. And we'll have to wait and see. But part of free agency is overpaying. That's just the way it rolls for all 32 teams. But I can see why Denver fell in love with this Zach Allen, right? The guy who was healthy from weeks 4 through 13 a year ago, and he put up 5.5 sacks in that 10-week span and 19 pressures. And so their belief is, hey, we're paying him 3 years, $45 million. If we can get those numbers for 17 games or just 16 or 15 or 14 games, we're going to have a 10-sack player. And for $45 million over 3 years, that's a pretty good deal on our end. I think Allen might be the X factor for this defense. where, yes, you have a star in Pat Surtain and Justin Simmons. But don't sleep on Allen, because if Allen gets you 8 to 10 sacks, which this team has not had a double-digit sack guy in, unfortunately, a little bit too long for how dominant their edge rushers were between Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Get 10 sacks, let's say, from Zach Allen. Baron Browning, when he comes back, if he can chime in for 5 sacks, if Randy Gregory can get you 8 sacks, and Frank Clark can get you 8 sacks, you've got 10, 8, 8, 5 from Baron Browning, a couple from Nick Bonitto, Josie Jewell, and all of a sudden this defense could be a top 10 defense again, because Denver's going to throw a lot of edge rushers at opposing offensive lines, and they're going to have to prepare for all these different players, because they might not all be howitzers, but if you get enough guns on the line, it's going to be tough to put up any defense for that. So if Zach Allen can live up to the payday between that, Randy Gregory, if he's good to go, and Frank Clark, this will be a good rushing committee for the defensive line. My final loser is me. I'm the loser. I thought about this one for a while because I couldn't really find a big loser, and I guess that makes me tonight's big loser. Sal, move over. But I am the big loser because I am not going to bat 1,000 when it comes to my hot takes. And one take that's not airing out, at least so well so far throughout training camp, is that Nick Bonitto is not going to be a great player for the Broncos. I was skeptical of the selection at the time. Unfortunately, his redshirt freshman year last year did not bring a whole lot of optimism that he's going to have a great sophomore campaign. But Bonitto so far at training camp has been really good. He put on some weight this offseason. He looks like a player who, in his last 2 years with the Oklahoma Sooners, put up 16 sacks and 26.5 tackles for loss, right? That's the guy Denver's hoping to find again. And they didn't get it last year, and that's okay because they didn't need an impact player in round 2 last year. They were drafting for traits. So I wasn't too panicky over a unimpactful first season, but I wanted a little bit more than a guy who never stepped on the field for the first couple of weeks of the season last year. Like, I thought second round, you'd at least find a way to crack the defensive line rotation. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But so far, if you're looking for good news out of Denver Broncos training camp, Bonitto is looking like that second-round selection. Another guy who might not be a true star, but for the bar, it's, exceeding what I expected out of Randy Gregory, because outside of a tweaked ankle after an interception, so a very good play made by the former Dallas Cowboy, Randy Gregory has had some good moments so far at training camp. And I'm here to remind you guys that as harsh as I am on Randy Gregory and as critical as I am on him, the guy produced in the first couple of weeks last year, right? Weeks 1 through 4 before he got hurt, 2 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 8 pressures. Him and Bradley Chubb were a 1-2 punching crew. I mean, they were very difficult to slow down and stop. Unfortunately, Gregory got hurt, and then he never quite came back the same in 2022. But if Denver can capture that guy for the first 4 weeks of the season and stretch it out over maybe not 17, because that seems like a lot to ask for from Gregory, but 14 or 15 games, they could have a 10-sack player. So who do you think has been the biggest winner so far from training camp? Was it someone that I talked about? Was it someone that I left off my list? Let me know in the comment section below who you think the biggest winner has been so far out of camp. Now, before we get on out of here, today's summer hot take, 84 degrees, another warm plate take. Mother Nature is keeping weather consistent in Denver. So 84 degrees. Here's my warm plate take for today. I think the Broncos finished top 5 in rush attempts for the first time since 2011, when Willis McGahee was this team's leading rusher. I think Sean Payton took this team over with a vision in place for 2023, and that was to run the football. They made a lot of moves to improve the run game. Ben Powers and Mike McGlinchey were not just good offensive linemen. They were run-blocking offensive linemen. Quinn Meinerz, a run-blocking tight end. You can see an emphasis being made to run the football, and I don't know if they're going to allow Russell Wilson to pass the ball enough for them not to finish top 5 in rushing carries or attempts, because that appears to be the bread and butter of this team's offense for 2023. Biggest winner so far, I've got Sorensen saying Brandon Johnson. I like that one. Definitely. Mr. Sam Brown? No, it's not going to be a cut. Yeah. Yeah. We're taking questions. So we do have a mailbag coming up. Now, the reason why is because they play Friday, so it won't go on after. But Jonathan Cooper coming in from Arlington. Good one. Jonathan Cooper has been really good all off season in terms of like during OTAs and minicamp, and he's brought that good play with him into training camp so far. So I like that one from Michael. Very good selection right there. Tim Stark is going with Annie's selection, which is Jaleel McLaughlin. Yeah, a bit of a miss on my end. I only went with 5 guys, but no doubt he has been a big winner so far in training camp. He has turned a lot of heads. The word on the street is every time he touches the field, he makes a big play. He's a first guy in, last guy out type of player. McLaughlin, definitely a big winner so far throughout training camp. Great choice by, is that Amy right there? Amy Massey. Yeah, Amy, excellent selection. Brendan also echoing Jaleel McLaughlin. Let me know down in the comment section who you think the biggest winner has been so far in training camp. A lot of votes coming in for the UDFA running back out of Youngstown State, McLaughlin. Jaquan McMillian, that is a former UDFA cornerback. I can't remember where he's from, but he has had some good plays. I have seen his name pop up and come up on my radar, so that's another good selection. Plus, Denver's a bit thin-ish at corner, just with Riley Moss down. That opens up a spot. So it's not going to move the needle too much, but it's going to move the needle. Is Tim Patrick a loser? No. Tim Patrick's not a loser. Tim Patrick's unfortunately been dealt a brutal hand of very, very bad injury luck. Does not make him a loser. I know that you can make the argument of like, well, he's not on the field, so that makes him a loser. But no. Tim Patrick's not a loser. JC going with Drew Sanders. I haven't heard too much around Drew Sanders, whether it's good or bad. I think he's just been run-of-the-mill, second team of defense with the linebackers, has made some plays, has maybe missed some plays, but not too good, not too bad either way. But I've got big expectations for Drew Sanders this year, no doubt about it. Leonard Keel going with Javonte Williams. His comeback story definitely makes him a winner in my eyes. Now, we do have a mailbag coming up next on the show, so get those questions in right now. #Broncos. Or if you want to guarantee a spot on screen, you can super chat like we had one fly in earlier, and we'll throw that on screen immediately. So if you've got a burning question about training camp or really anything related to Broncos training camp, super chat if you'd like to, or #Broncos in the chat. Correct. Okay. BBF, use #Broncos, though. I don't say that to be a stickler. I say it because our software cannot pull the question and put it on screen unless #Broncos is somewhere in your question. So do us a solid, #Broncos, and then we'll throw it on screen. Or if you like the free content, super chats, they're always greatly appreciated. Okay. We will get to a couple of these questions. Smitty, if you just want to pick some of the first ones you see as we get more coming in, and we'll start breaking these bad boys down. So this first one coming in between Jace Bear. What's your take on who should win the kicker battle between Elliott Fry and Brett Maher? Elliott Fry went 7 for 8 today and had a 50-plus yarder at camp. They have both looked good so far. I don't know if one guy has really emerged over the other, but I would go with Brett Maher. I know what happened in the postseason. I understand all that. And if this team goes to the postseason, let's cross that bridge then, right? Let's ditch Brett Maher before we get to the postseason. But he was awesome in the regular season last year. He had the yips. I understand that kicker is such a sensitive spot where, like, if they get the yips, you just got to move on. Blair Walsh, Daniel Carlson, all that good stuff. But it didn't really work out Carlson for the Vikings. But nevertheless, I think Brett Maher is a proven kicker. He's a better kicker. I would go with him over Elliott Fry. JC, thank you so much for the question. Ducky God, do we get Duron Payne? No. Duron Payne signed a big contract extension this offseason. Did he not? Now, his teammate Montez Sweat and Chase Young are both going to be free agents at the end. Yeah, at the end of this upcoming season. Chase Young is entering his Chase Young going to be a free agent? No. He will be a free agent after the season. He was the second overall pick in the 2020 NFL. He was right behind Joe Burrow. So yes. 2020, 21, 22. Holy shit, yeah.
They declined his fifth-year option.
Yeah. Okay. But Sweat and Chase Young, if we're talking Washington defensive linemen, those are more attainable targets. Deron Payne, unlikely to happen. Moses, next up. If Denver starts off 1-5 or 2-4, should we sell and draft for a rebuild/retool? Yes. I know that sucks to hear, but if under these parameters, if Denver is 1-5 or 2-4, I'm going to assume things aren't going well. So if you can get something for Courtland Sutton, just like how they got a first for Bradley Chubb, which led to them getting Sean Payton, I would make that trade. I would make that move if this team is not going anywhere. And you're moving on from these guys at the end of this upcoming season anyway, right? If you don't see a long-term plan with Courtland Sutton past 2023 and things aren't going well, and someone wants to toss you a third-round pick, which you're short some draft ammunition last year because of the Sean Payton trade, yes, I would make a move. Guys I would not touch, though, Pat Surtain is off limits. That's not even like a debate. I want to put Justin Simmons in that tier. But if an offer came in that was too good to refuse, I could see them pulling the trigger on that type of trade, but there's no offer that's too good to refuse for Pat Surtain. It's like really, like, Pat Surtain's really the only one off limits. Like, even Jerry Jeudy could be moved theoretically if he does not have a great start to the year and someone wants to overpay because they think they're one wide receiver away and he's the best guy in the market. So it sucks. No one likes having that conversation, but we have to address it because it was a reality last year. Tony Tufano. Tony, has the pace at training camp been faster than last year? Yes, last year has been described now as like field day, the last day of 5th grade. This year, it's been pads on as much as possible, practice as long as possible, and the tempo as high as possible. So yes, Tony, it has been a very different pace compared to last year where Hackett kind of viewed the preseason as just something we got to get through until the regular season. And my goal is to mitigate injuries as much as possible. And we saw how that led to the regular season of this team not being prepared. Another question coming in from... We got more questions coming in? We got one from Michael here. What's going on? Yeah, Michael, do you think we will beat the Chiefs this season? Do I think the Broncos will beat the Chiefs this season? I know you just want me to say yes because you want to hear it, and I get that. I mean, the sports fan in me agrees. But do I actually think Denver's going to beat Kansas City this year? No. Like, what reason do I have to believe that? Now, if Denver gets off to a 6-0 start going into those 1 of 2 games against Kansas City in a 3-week stretch, yeah, they could give the Chiefs a run for their money. Patrick Mahomes is not going to go undefeated against Denver in his NFL career. Like, there have been quarterbacks who have dominated some teams. Tom Brady in the AFC East dominated the whole division, especially Buffalo. But even the Bills got their, albeit just 1 or 2, 3 wins, they did get those wins, right? Ben Roethlisberger against the Browns. Like, there have been some team killers. Patrick Mahomes has killed the Broncos so far and really the entire division. It won't last forever, but I'm not going to call my shot before I see a good product on the field to believe this is the year. Like, if you want me to call my shot as in, hey, fluky games happen, sure. The Colts, who were a bottom 5 team last year, beat the Chiefs. The Bears, who were the worst team in football last year, beat the 49ers. So flukes do happen, but I'm not going to act like a fluke is the thing I'm going to lean back on and go, that's my reasoning for Denver beating Kansas City. Sorensen, next one up on the show. On a scale of 1 to 10, how good will Marvin Mims be this year and in the future? Well, let me do the this year part, because I can't really do 1 to 10 for both those things. 1 to 10 for this year, 10 being he's a Pro Bowl wide receiver. 1 being it's a disaster and he hardly sees the field. I think he'll be a 5.5, meaning he's closer to Pro Bowl than disaster, but he's not going to get a huge amount of targets. I think he's going to be a big big-time player, like big player, meaning like big-time plays. That's the word I'm kind of looking for here, where he'll have a game where he goes off for 3 grabs and 85 yards and a touchdown, but he'll have games where he goes off for 1 reception for 12 yards, and that's all he does that day. He's not going to be a consistent go-to receiver. So for that, I don't think the expectation should be he's going to be a Pro Bowler year 1, but I think he'll be closer to Pro Bowler than complete bust who hardly gets on the field and is just an all-time draft disaster. Leonard Keel, will we bring back Shelby Harris? Denver brought Shelby Harris back for a visit a week and a half ago. My suspicion is this. One of 2 ways this visit went. Way number A, Shelby Harris visited, and he was not in football shape, and Denver's like, this ain't happening. Shelby Harris visited, the visit went well, and Denver said, we're going to keep you in our back pocket. We're going to wait for at least 1 preseason game to go by before we decide to add some new guys to our defensive line and sort of stunt the growth of some of the younger players that we have added over the last season or 2, or the players we have signed. If after the first preseason game or 2, Matt Henningsen and Jonathan Harris don't look the part, then yeah, maybe they pick up the phone and give Shelby Harris a call and say, let's make it happen. So will they end up doing it? I'll have a better answer for you after the first preseason game when I get to see the defensive line go up against Arizona. Would I like to see them get it done? I think Shelby Harris is a very good football player. I think any team should be interested in Shelby Harris. He was very good for Seattle last year. Plus, if you bring it back, I've long said, I think you technically win the Russell Wilson trade. Because you get Shelby Harris back, right? He's like a spy almost. He's like a Benedict Arnold if he went over to England and then came back to the U.S. with King George. That would constitute as a win. I don't know what I'm missing here. BBF, what's going on? Which starters do you think will and won't play this preseason? Who won't play? People that are injured. Like Mike McGlinchey. He got nicked up in practice. If he's not 100%, he's not playing. Russell Wilson will play. Javonte Williams might not play the first preseason game. But guys like Ben Powers and Lloyd Cushenberry and Quinn Meinerz, they're playing. If Garrett Bowles is 100% from his leg fracture, he will play. On the defensive side, if Frank Clark and Randy Gregory are not quite 100%, they're not going to force it. But Josie Jewell, Alex Singleton, Damari Mathis, Zach Allen, those guys are going to play a series or 2. I don't want to see Pat Surtain play. I think he's in that status. He's the only one in that club. Him and Justin Simmons, another guy who's injured. They're the only 2 guys in the untouchable club of what's the point of playing in the preseason. You know what they are. They're the best in the biz at their job. We don't need to see any more of it. So that's a rough idea of who I think will and won't play in the preseason. Brendan, next question. This will be the last question unless we get a super chat to keep the Q&A going. If the Broncos win on Friday, Matthew has to get pied in the face the next live show. Brendan woke up and chose violence today. Why is winning worth pieing me? That's the one thing. Like, I don't mind getting the pie in the face, but for a win, like that seems like a bad time to get pied. I feel like
a preseason win.
I guess I have to agree to being pied in the face. Brendan, I think you're on the right train of thought. I don't know if I'm going to agree to this for a preseason win against the Cardinals, but I can get behind a pie in the face bet. So if you want to circle back with a different proposal for getting pied in the face, or I'll put my own brain cells to it, we can come up with a pie in the face bet. That I can get. That I will agree to. We'll definitely come up with one. I'm not going to do it for a preseason game against the Cardinals. I don't want to find myself like rooting for Colt McCoy all of a sudden to lead a comeback against Denver. All right, last question here, and if we don't get another super chat, we will call it for today's live show. What is the Broncos' ceiling and floor? This is a good question to end on. Broncos' floor, probably 5 wins. How many games they won last year? Are they worse this year? I don't think so. They are better. Could they have stayed the same? Potentially. So I'll say their floor is actually 6 wins. I do think they are better than they are last year, and so that means the floor has to be 1 win above that at least. So 6 wins is the floor. The ceiling, give me 10 wins. I can't quite get to 11. And I know that you want me to say 11 wins, but I'm going to go with 10 wins. And 10 wins gets you in the postseason. 9 wins got it done last year for Miami. So I think Sean Payton takes over a 5-win team that had 9 one-score losses. If he goes 5-4 in those 9 games instead of 0-9, this team goes 10-7 instead. So I'm going to go with 6 games as the floor, 10 games as the ceiling. Quick reminder to subscribe. If you enjoyed the live show we did today, consider subscribing because we have free daily content, live interactive shows like the one we are having right now. And I like to believe it's the best Broncos YouTube channel out there. There's a lot of great spots to get your daily Broncos fix in. So include us in your rotation. Subscribe, greatly appreciated. Thanks so much for tuning in, taking time out of your Tuesday to come hang out with us. We are going to sign off. We'll see everyone throughout the week with more updates leading up to that first preseason game against the Cardinals. Go Broncos. Until next time.